Good morning, Distripress. So today we're going to focus on the UK print market. It's a fabulous market, it's got lots of diversity, and our consumers are sport for choice when it comes to the media brands they can consume. Even if the mouse doesn't work. Anyone make the mouse work? Oh. No.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Press the wrong button, press the left button. There you go.
There we go.
Well done.
Thank you. So, 3,000 magazines, 12 national titles, and over 1,000 regional titles. It's a huge number of brands for consumers to choose from. We're blessed with some of the best retailing standards in the world, with the super brands of Tesco's, Asda, Morrisons and Sainsbury's, the specialists of WH Smith, and then over 33,000 independent retailers, primarily trading in either the CTN or the convenience sector. We have 50,000 retailers selling newspapers and magazines on a daily basis. From a consumer perspective, 60% of households buy a newspaper or a magazine on a very regular basis. And our trick is to make them buy slightly more frequently than they do today. But overall, it's a £4 billion market. That makes it a huge market by UK retailing standards. And if you've got a market of that size, you need a robust supply chain. And that is our supply chain. And actually, it's incredibly robust because we have what we call a shared route to market. And that means that most publishers, both newspapers and magazines, use one of two wholesalers to deliver their product, either Smiths News plc or Menzies Distribution plc. They award geographically exclusive contracts, which means that when we distribute our media product, it goes on one vehicle to a single retailer. And the economies of scale that are driven from this benefit everybody in the supply chain. We absolutely believe that the UK supply chain works in the best interest of the consumer. That's something that our competition authorities have been looking at for over a decade now, and they've reached the same conclusions as us. And why do we believe that? Because actually, it doesn't matter where you live in the UK, you can get access to a rich variety of brands, on sale on almost always on the same day, at the same price. But the UK market is a tough market, and you've just heard Ellis talking about that. If you look at volume over the last 5 years, we've seen weeklies reduced by 31%. We've seen monthlies reduced by 36%, and what we call part works, the collectibles, 46% over a 5-year period. Now, newspapers have dropped typically by about 6% per annum over that same period. So that's a pretty tough marketplace. If you overlay price, sure, newspapers looks much healthier actually. But if you look at it from a magazine perspective, whilst it's improved in some areas, it's easy to see that magazine publishers are finding it harder to convince the consumer to pay more for their products. So over the 5 years, you can see there the total market decline. It's a significant number. But it's not just publishing. If you were to look at the retail sector, if I'd have been stood here 10 years ago, I'd have been saying about the power of the independent retailer in the UK. And that's still true to a large extent. But from a magazine perspective, over the last few years, we've seen a gradual migration to the power brands, to the major retailers. And now 40% of all magazines are sold within the top 5 retailers. When a newspaper publisher wants to put a volume-driving promotion together, 9 times out of 10, they go to one of the big retail chains to drive that through for them. Now, for those of you that have studied economics, you'll be familiar with the phrase Pareto. And Pareto simply means that you get 80% of the benefit from approximately 20% of your top suppliers, your top retailers, or your top ideas. And that absolutely is the case for magazines. We may have 3,000 titles, but the top 300 titles are generating 78% of all sales. It's not quite the case for newspapers, where the skew is slightly different. But if you look at the chart there, you can see that 45% of sales for a newspaper come at the weekend, where typically the cover price is higher and the content has a much bigger value-added element. Now, I don't know if you can read that at the back or are even familiar with charts like this. But what I'm trying to show you here is how consumers consume printed media. And how this basically works is you've got all the way around the outside, you've got different age groups. And the idea is the closer you are to the outside, that is the closest to the preference of that age group for how they want to consume media. And the encouraging thing for us is, if you take the blue line, that's traditional print. If you take the red line, that's consuming media via a tablet or a computer. And if you take the green line right in the very center, that's consuming media via a smartphone. So whilst the digital revolution is absolutely taking place, we should not lose sight of the fact that for the vast majority of people, regardless of their age range at this moment in time, their preference is still to consume media in a printed format. Now, we all know, and Ellis has touched on this, that people are investing millions in their digital propositions going forward. And the truth is, that proposition is becoming richer by the day. They're also building lots and lots of traffic. But equally, we also know that the business models are nascent. There are very few publishers making millions of pounds through digital in the way they do print. And therefore, importantly for us, the trend really is around complementary revenue streams. It's not about digital replacing print. It's about a multimedia approach to the consumer. But it's not just publishers investing in technology. Throughout our supply chain, every link in the chain has been investing in technology over the last few years. All of the major brands that you can see before you are present in the UK print supply chain. If we focus on wholesale for a second, both Smiths News and Menzies Distribution operate from the world-class SAP platform. Both wholesalers provide a just-in-time, sales-based replenishment system for our major retailers based on their EPOS sales. Both wholesalers track all the products to a retailer and track it all the way back again to make sure shrink is minimised in the supply chain. And both wholesalers are trying to innovate to reduce complexity at store level and to improve profitability at store level. From a Smiths News perspective, we have a business called Rascal. Rascal is a vendor-managed inventory solution. In short, our major supermarkets can manage the category on a PDA solution. It removes the paperwork, it removes phone calls. Typically, a major supermarket in the UK will have 6% of sales lost to shrink. A Rascal customer has less than 2% of sales lost to shrink. And they also have typically a 5-hour labour saving at store level. So that's what we're doing to try and improve profitability of our major customers. So if you're in a market where you're coming under margin pressure from your major retailers, or you're a major retailer trying to work out how you push your category profitability, it's solutions like that you should be looking at. Equally, Menzies have developed some software and some iPhone applications to improve the access for their customers to their business. It's all about efficiency. And the reason we're doing that is because we're service providers. That's why we exist. And the moment we forget that, we lose our role in the chain. Our role is to make publishers and retailers more profitable and to make the supply chain more sustainable. So what about the future challenges? We have a fabulous market here in the UK. I've talked about the retail standards. I've talked about the number of titles. I've talked about the way we're collaborating to make sure the supply chain is sustainable. But there are some challenges, and not just the challenges around sales. If you're a publisher, how do you get the balance right between driving price and reducing volume? How much should you invest in digital at the expense of your investment in print? If you're a retailer, how do you innovate at the store level to attract the consumer, to generate more impulse purchases? That's your challenge. And if you're a wholesaler, you've got a commercial model which is based on low margins but high volume, but volumes are in decline. So how's that going to affect your business going forward? These are all the challenges, but we shouldn't be intimidated by those. We've had challenges in the past, we'll have challenges in the future. Actually, we believe there's lots of opportunities. And what Stephen and Neil are going to talk to you about now is just that, where the opportunities exist in the UK. Those we've experienced and those we're targeting in the future. So I'd now like to hand over to Stephen Hurst, Managing Director of Market Force, who will focus on magazines first of all. Thank you very much.